So nice to be here, and I want to thank. Actually, first, I'm excited and I'm nervous also. So first off, I want to start by thanking Mr. Basu for inviting me here. So respected Mr. Basu, Mr. Shields, Mr. Chunawala, Mr. Billy Moria. So nice to see both of you. Ms. Roy, Ms. Bajaj, and respected teachers. I'm sorry if I missed somebody from the administration, the faculty. It's such a pleasure to be here. And to my dear friends, the students, I was thinking about what I could talk to you guys about. And the first line that I thought I should put is that I want to tell you that I'm actually one of you. And Mr. Basu has given me strict instructions. He said, Harshil, please talk about your failures. So that's what I'm going to do over the next 35 to 40 minutes. I hope you enjoy it. I was actually out here this 2005 in this same very hall. It's almost 20 years now. And I just finished the two best years of my life. I was from the first batch of this school. Back when I was in this school, we used to just have, I had entered in the 11th, so we had the 11th and 12th for the IB program. And I was graduating, and I wasn't as sharp as maybe some of you are nowadays. The Dhirubhai Ambani School has got a great credential for producing some of the best talent in this country over the last few years. And I unfortunately was graduating with no clue about what I should do. I hadn't given my SATs. I had the possibility of a niche degree in the UK, and no Indian college was ready to accept me. So I was there sitting in the auditorium, just as the graduation was happening, and I was like, hey, what's going to happen? I don't really know what's going to happen from here. And then as that went on, also I was seeing my friends going to Harvard and Cambridge and Duke and the like, and everybody was getting into great universities. I was at the peak of my confusion with no clarity with respect to my career. So I was middling. If I had to reveal my grades a little bit, it would be embarrassing today by DIS standards. So I will refrain from doing that. But that's really where I was back in 2005. And what I've learned along the way, and I'll try to unfold this thing, what I call love. It's the things that we love that are our strongest guides along the way. So I want to try to unfold that with a bit of perspective on my story and my mistakes and how I've kind of reached here, which I believe today I'm sitting here at the start of my journey. So I would love to talk to you guys a little bit about that. So how did I move from being completely unsure to somewhat finding my center is the journey that I want to talk to you about, and I hope you find some value in it. So here's what I do today. I know he's already given a bit of introduction, but here's what I do today is that I sit today and I'm fortunate enough to be able to run two companies, and one is growing, one is a baby. So it's interesting because I traverse those two lives. I am running Shebang, which is today India's largest independent creative and technology transformation company. We're a team of about 1,000 of us, and we get the opportunity to serve some of the top brands in the country for their creative and technology requirements. So that's one company that I run, and he said also that we've got about 7 years of existence, about 1,000 members, and we're in 3 cities. And when I started this company, I always wanted to build a global business. So one of the things that I knew in my line of work, which is in this line of creative and technology transformation, which is slightly different, it's like we're the cousins of IT. So what we've seen in our line of business is that you always had an American company. So you had the big, you guys would have heard of the likes of Ogilvy and Wunderman Thompson and some of those companies. So you had the big American companies, the big British companies, the big French companies. So you would have heard of Publicis and Havas and those kind of companies which are there all over the world. You have the big Japanese companies, and there is no Indian company. So when I started out this company, I always wanted an Indian player to dominate. So from day one, I articulated my vision saying that from India to the world and the best of the world back to India, because I think really we're sitting in India today, and I think that's the amazing opportunity that all of us have, which is that India is at the peak of making the most of our demographic dividend. So that's really the first context, and that's why this is a hardcore services company, and what can we do to serve our talent with the best and then be able to deliver the best to customers across the world. So So that's it, and this year we're just about 45 days away from opening our offices in the UK and the Netherlands. So that's the India to the world part of the chapter now kind of starting to slowly unfold, so I'm really excited by that. And we're going to have hubs in the UK and in the Netherlands, supported by hubs in India, and this is just the start, so we're not stopping, so I feel like now with a 1,000-member team and with the backing of so many strong companies in India, we have now the ability to go across the world. So that's where this company is at a little bit right now. And this is a very interesting chapter from a book by Subrata Bagchi, who was the chairman of Mindtree. He says this, which is that from 5,000 to 130,000 in 11 years is what Infosys did. And that's what I'm out to chase a little bit. I want to ride that kind of wave with my services business, because I think that India, where we were with services in IT in the 2000s, with 2020, we're there with creative technology. Because I think a lot of us, we grew up with exposure to the world, with culture, with understanding, we deeply understand the rest of the world, we're exposed to all of it. So I think that's what we're sitting on, and that's what I'm out here to ride. So that's my first company. And we also started doing work across the world. So this is a joint venture which I have with a Swedish company. And whenever I speak to the Swedes, there are about 800 of them in that IT consulting company. So I call them our cousins from the other part of the world, because we're culturally very similar in terms of the DNA of the companies. So that's a venture in IT consulting that we work on. So that's a little bit about what I do here. And I always wanted to be able to set myself to be able to build many serious businesses. I'm sure some of you have that desire in yourself as well, that maybe I will want to build many serious businesses. I think most of us are growing up seeing an icon like Elon Musk, who's running many companies, and we've seen many people that we've seen growing up within our sphere where they can do more. So Gen Z is about really maximizing yourself. So that's what I wanted to do as well. And I wanted to make sure that I wanted to be in businesses that elevate people and add value to human life. So that's when I set up my second company, which is called Level, and it's with my co-founders, another DIS alumni, Ranveer Alabadia, and we're building that company to have a sharp business model with 15,000 users. So that's what we're working on, on this particular business, and it's the whole idea is to build a product that is around supercharging your brain. This is what it looks like. We've got a combination of meditation, breathwork, yoga, affirmation, journaling, and sleep stories. So we've kind of neatly bundled it in, and we're building this for students of competitive exams across India, and then slowly transferring it to the world. So as of now, we're sitting at 15,000 users and growing it. It's been about 8 to 9 months of building this company. So this is what I'm building right now. And one of the big reasons is that we were interested in building this company is that what we saw across data is that when students and when young people started to meditate, what really started happening is that their focus increased, their speed of cognition increased, the amount of clarity that they had increased, the ability to stay out of stress increased, and the ability to stay in that state for longer increased. So we think that this is a really untapped potential. So I always liken the start of this company to what Nike did to running, we need to do to meditation, because that's really what the purpose of this company is. So that's the other company that I work on, and I try to really focus on a little bit of how I can use myself as an instrument to be able to deliver. I know it's it's kind of dwarfing to speak in front of all the fantastic work that the Reliance Foundation does. But I think all of us as entrepreneurs, when you get into business, when I get into business, we want to try to make sure that we're able to see ourselves as an instrument to give. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this as well. And my focus on this, which is around skilling students in design and code, because I think creativity and code are the two areas that I understand well, and that's what I want to be able to cater to the country at large. And I always try to plug this whenever I get the chance to speak. So if you get the chance to, please listen to this song. It's a song I wrote on entrepreneurship. So I kind of wanted to do a little bit of this context setting because now I'm going to do what Mr. Basu said, which is now I'm going to reflect on the mistakes, but I thought it was important to just set context as to what I'm talking about, who I am, and what I do. And I think that this is the start of my journey. Because as I sit here, I feel for the first time in my life, almost after 20 years of getting out of school, I feel for the first time in my life that okay, you're sitting at the center and you're really in a clear direction and you know where you're going to go. So the first thing I want to tell you is that it's taken me 20 years to get to this place. So I think it can take a little long, just the time you get out of school, it's not going to be like, hey, I will know how to own the world. So I feel like I'm just about starting this journey, and that's really, really humbling, exciting, as well as I'm really looking forward to it. So how did this really happen? And what are the big lessons that I can have? The first lesson that I have is that what I've tried to cultivate is a deep love for learning. I don't know if you guys still have those awards which you give at the end of, the graduation, but there was an award that I got in Dais, which is still my most treasured award. It was an award that I received, which was, I don't know if you still have this award, but it's called the Lifetime Learner Award. Yeah, so I was the first recipient of the Lifetime Learner Award, and that was the most treasured award in the sense, not because of the trophy, but because of what it represents. Because you have to have this love for learning, and that kind of guides you along the way. And I want to give you a few examples of how that works. So for me in college, so I told you about my confusion, and finally that I decided to stay back in India. I did go to university abroad. I decided to, I went and begged and pleaded with a few college principals to let me in, saying that, look, the IB grade, which is equivalent of the Indian grade, I was probably one of those first people with a begging bowl saying, please convert this. And, one of them were kind of lucky, I was lucky enough to get converted. And what I started doing then is, because I was in India, I started to try to make the most of what I do. So in college, I did 3 internships over 3 years, each one for 8 months. And they kind of set the foundation for everything that I'm doing today. Because what I learned in the internships is that I found my love for advertising, technology and media in all 3 of them. All 3 different businesses were actually in advertising, technology and media. And I was like kind of learning and trying to understand a little bit about each one of these businesses. So that was really fun. And 8 out of these 12 months I finished college and head to the office curious to learn about all the various aspects, so that that whole quest of what DIS taught me. And I think what DIS teaches us how to do is really gives us the skills to keep learning. Because it gives us the skills to keep, always inquiring, which is what I think is amazing about the school and the teachers and the program. And it's the fundamental bedrock, like I said, of everything that I'm doing today. So I learned the art of writing, I learned the art of exploring, and I learned the fundamentals of technology. I was setting up at one point in time WiMAX boxes all over the city of Mumbai. Before we had 4G, there was a WiMAX technology. Some of you may have studied that, but that's what I was kind of doing. So I kind of hardwired and learned a little bit of that. And I love doing all of it, and that is actually, when I spoke about my second company, I was kind of feeling like I want to continue to learn about product marketing. I want to learn about neuroscience. So, that's kind of fueling me to try to do that further. So, and also I love learning about new markets and new cultures. So I think, the idea of learning and really just being very curious, inquiring, but at the same time humble, because one of the other things that I've learned is that when we try to learn, if we are not humble about what we're trying to learn, then the other person doesn't really open up. So it's also about demeanor, and I think that's the other big lesson that I've tried to learn about inquiring a learning-based attitude. And the other thing to focus on is that even if I want to try to be somebody who's able to be an instrument to help people, then I can only learn I can only help them if I learn about them. So classic case is, especially if you do a lot of work, I know that in the CAS program you do a lot of work with, different kinds of people. But what I learned also is that when I started going to villages, and there was a period of 2 years where every Saturday I went to a different village to try to learn a little bit about the village. My first instinct, I used to enter the village and I used to be like, okay, cool, let's set up a computer lab here. Stupid. If I really had to look back at it, very, very stupid. Because that's not the way you are able to help people if you don't understand that, actually once they wake up, the biggest problem that they have is access to water is not there, that there is toilet which is not there, that the school infrastructure is missing so many things beyond the computer, that you need to be able to undertake and really inquire and be able to speak in the local language and get down to that level and be able to understand and then say that look at me eye to eye so that I can learn a bit about you. so that I can take things forward. So I think those are some of the things that, if there's one thing to leave in mind is that this quest to keep learning is something that can, drive all of us throughout life. And I think what's fantastic is that we call in this school, we don't call it a library and we call it a learning center. So I actually love that. When I was putting this together, I was like, this is what the school is really inculcating into all of us from an early age. And pardon me if it seems a bit nostalgic, but I'm just looking at it from a slightly outward point of view, saying that some of these seeds which we are getting ingrained right now into our lives are going to, kind of help us as we go along on our journeys. The other thing is, I think the other thing is to respect human life and add value to human life. Actually this shebang is actually my second startup. So I have now 3 startups. The first one I'll talk to you a little bit about. But before that I want to talk about my first internship. This internship that I used to do in an advertising agency, beautiful office. It had a beetle like this sitting in the middle of the office, beautiful bungalow. And also what used to happen is the boss of that agency, there was a bungalow and there was a tower next to the bungalow, and the boss used to sit in the tower. So what I noticed is that the people who were working in the agency, they had a lot of issues and they were complaining to each other about the issues, but they weren't necessarily kind of being able to bring that to the boss. And then I was like, okay, actually to get to the boss you have to get through to his assistant, then you have to fix a time, and then then you have to be able to get through. And then that just didn't make sense to me. So I was like, I don't think this is the way a company is supposed to be running. To some of you this may be a little obvious, but there I was, after this overt confusion after the 12th, and now I'm in the 13th, and I'm kind of running it this way, and this is not the way it's supposed to be done. And that's when I received an email right in the midst of this. Amazing person called Mr. John Bogle, who runs a company called Vanguard, over $3.5 trillion in assets being run at the lowest cost for people being invested in across the world. And he wrote this letter, 12 Rules of Building a Great Workforce. And the first thing he said is that you don't call your people employees, you call them crew members. And he called his company the Vanguard because he called it named after the HNS Vanguard, which was a ship which conquered a lot of territory, and he saw himself as the captain of the ship. And he said that as the captain of the ship, if I start looking at my people as my employees and not my crew members, then I'm not going to be able to do them a service. So this idea of service and this idea of seva and this idea of serving everybody is at the center, I think, of most of entrepreneurship, leadership, or actually any kind of work where you're serving people, so whether it is anything, I think that's one big takeout that I've had, and I'm really glad that I received that letter. And then right after that I built my first startup. I was out of college, I didn't want to necessarily do a job, I knew that I was good with creativity, so I set up a company in 2008, it was called Foxymoron, it still exists. I've exited that company now, and I built it with 3 other partners. This was actually our first office. If you see the pictures up there, the wooden pictures, it had no windows. It was a rundown location, and I was like, okay, how do we really attract talent to come here? We were lucky that we were sitting right opposite VT station. If you guys know Fort and VT station, we were sitting right opposite there. So we had a good location, but this was all we could afford at the time, because we didn't want to make sure that we were taking too much money and bringing people in. So we said this is all we can afford. The office was a bit like this. So what we did, and the bottom 2 pictures are a little bit of how the environment looked after that. So I look at this example as the way we Tom Sawyer through life. You guys would all know the story of Tom Sawyer whitewashing a fence. Many of you would have studied that early on. So when he sort of tells his friends that, oh, where are you going? You're going to the river. I'm actually whitewashing a fence. Why don't you want to give it a shot? You'll have to trade something with me. So that's kind of what I did. And I called in a lot of friends who were good with art, some DIS alum also, who kind of came and helped us with making this office into a beautiful office. So it became an environment where people could come and be served with creativity. So that was the other interesting lesson of being able to learn and to serve. And then it's set the foundation for a very sought after company. We grew the company very quickly. It was a company well written about, very well spoken about in the press and in industry. And we got a good offer to get bought out. A company, it was now ready to be sold. But for me, I had other plans. So I didn't want to get sold at that point in time. and I knew that I wanted to continue building the business. So I got the sense that people wouldn't be people once we got acquired from the acquirer, having sort of some discussions in the meeting. So what I decided to do is that when the offer to be bought out came, I bought out my freedom, and then I set up what I spoke to you about, which is Shebang. So I launched Shebang in 2014 after 6.5 years of running Foxy Moron, and then I set up Shebang, and that's what I'm continuing to do today. And I found 2 co-conspirators and co-founders and focused on culture, and this is what we built at Shebang, and this culture has produced great work. So I'm looking forward to show you one piece of good work that we've done. But before that, I want to just give you a little bit of a sense of the culture that we built at the company. One interesting story I want to tell you is that whenever I open an office, even that idea of painting the office and the idea of now painting every new office that I open came from one of my CAS experiences. So there was an organization I used to work with called Pukar. I don't know if you guys still work with that in CAS, but we had, as part of our CAS project, we had to go and explore different hamlets of the city and try to understand and learn from them. So I explored the Koli culture and the Koliwadas, and one of the things that I learned during my CAS project is that the Kolis, whenever they put a new boat into the sea, they always take the palm prints of the women in the village, and they put the thumbprints on the boat almost as if to bless them as the boat is going out to sea. So that's what I learned then, and that idea stayed with me, and that's what I've tried to implement in every office that we've gone forward to so far. So that is now stuck, and I just want to make that point also because it's these little things, this learning center, this palm prints, some of the things that that's so obscure that we won't even imagine from school are going to stay with us and then form a part of whatever we build tomorrow. And then I want to show you also a little bit about the work. So this is only one piece of work that I want to show you, just so I can give you a context of the kind, that kind of culture builds what kind of work. So I want to show you a little bit of work that we do for one of the most loved brands in the country. This is for Fevicol.
The ultimate resistor, the ultimate bomb, the ultimate dance. Over 2 decades ago, Fevicol not only changed but defined Indian advertising. Then came the era of the internet. Brands climbed the digital bandwagon. And this became Fevicol's newest challenge to tackle. So how do we make a brand that's so deep-rooted in traditional advertising relevant in the digital world? It's simple. We did what Fevicol has been doing all along. We made ads that stuck. Sometimes, quite different. We looked at audiences across platforms and made ourselves part of their daily moments, making our joy with our followers more must-have than ever before. On Facebook, where the average attention span is just 3 seconds, we got people to slow down and interact with us. We even managed to get Twitter users on board through, you guessed it, memes. It began with one post turning into a meme format that users couldn't help but pick up. This went on to become a trend with influencers and hundreds of people following suit. Our timely responses to trends helped us grow even more. In just 1 week, We made earned media worth 60,000 in a single day. And moreover, our tweet was retweeted the most in that week all over India. And on Instagram, we made the most of it. And just make sure our content really stuck. Our posts also made their way to get on the platform organically. Several professionals from different industries shared our posts on their LinkedIn platforms and appreciated them. And the sharing didn't stop there. Users loved our posts so much, they widely circulated them on WhatsApp groups, making them part of their daily conversations. From festivals to scientific discoveries, from TV shows to cricket matches, we were everywhere. And so was the news about our modern marketing. People didn't just like our content, they loved it. We were featured on several marketing and advertising portals, media houses, and papers. Overall, our content broke the clutter across all platforms. But the one thing that did break, well, that's something we don't need to tell you. The ultimate bomb.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the opportunity that our work gives us. There was also, if you guys remember, Cristiano Ronaldo, when he moved the Coke bottles, we had done an iconic ad that time because we just put the Fevicol bottle on the stage and we said, "Na bottle hategi, na valuation hategi," because the Coke valuation fell the moment Ronaldo moved it, and that became quite viral as well. So that's the kind of work that we do. The other thing I want to talk about is that there's this concept among a lot of us where we talk about the heart and the mind and when to follow your heart and when to follow your mind. And I think that I just want to leave this one tip because it's been super helpful to me, which is that I think the heart is actually something that kind of gives you a guidance saying that look here, look here, look here. But it's actually the mind which has to do the work where the heart says look here. And then when we make decisions, at least I always try to do this where I make a decision, I use the heart as a veto card, not as a medium to drive the message, but I use the heart as a veto card. So if my heart says no, only then will I listen to it, but I don't listen to my heart when it says yes, because our hearts most of the time are like, I use the heart to say, okay, here's where you can go. Then the mind is doing the work. And then if the heart says no, then I retract back. So I think that's one thing that I've learned, and I want to give you some examples of also how that happened. Coming back to my my first company which I started. So if I just go back to the journey, really confused after college, really confused after school, no colleges accepting me. I did my degree, I did my internships, I didn't know again where that was going to go. I set up the venture. My first venture, it did really well, so I was really lucky because of that. And now 6.5 years in, I had to take a big decision whether to continue or not continue. And somewhere my heart was tugging at me saying that this is not what you got to do. But I just didn't listen to it at that point in time. I knew I wanted to build this global company, so what I did is I built a very, very detailed plan before I left. So before I decided to make the move, I had to sit down and understand that, okay, this new business that I'm going to be building, what will it look like in month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right up till month 24. To the T, by the department, by the number of employees I needed to hire, by the number of businesses that I needed to win. So then it became a bet which was a worthwhile bet to make. It became a calculated gamble. So I could have easily done it saying that, look, I'm just not feeling it, let me just get out and do it. But really breaking it down, and I think that's something that we all have in common, all of us, the rigor that we bring to our work. But I think that's what, once you leave school, that rigor has to be in every aspect of life. So that was really interesting. And then I kind of also built it department by department for 5 years. So that's where this whole heart and mind conflict started to take shape. And 7 years down the line, I'm really actually glad I did that, because the company that I left behind, today the company that I'm running is 5 times the company that I left behind in terms of size, turnover, profit, the number of people we hire, the impact that we make. And again, I feel like we're just getting started, so it's, that whole process was really, really important. The other fourth lesson, and I think this is, I'm coming towards the last two of it. So this idea of going deep is something that we may not really understand at necessarily this age. but I just want to spend a little bit of time on it. This whole idea of going deep into whatever we are doing, and I gave the example of the work that I was doing in the villages, and I'm now able to say that I was coming from a place of privilege, and when you're coming from a place of privilege, it's very easy, it's very difficult to actually hammer yourself down and hammer your own ego down. So this whole idea of moving and working yourself and your mind and transporting it from a place of privilege to a place of practicality is only possible if you really are able to go deep into the subject. It's kind of linked to that point about learning as well, and that's important. And so for example, even with respect to the work in the villages, it's more about saying that okay, if the school has a kitchen, if it has a kitchen, where's the food coming from? Who's cooking it? What ingredients are there? What's the kind of support staff? Where are they going to deploy that? If you start thinking of all those problems from all these different angles, then that's really the process of going deep. And another mistake that I made with respect to going deep, with respect to, I spoke a little bit about Level, but the first mistake that we made with Level when we started it, and I'm sure there's going to be a few more along the way, but when we started Level, we said that we wanted to build what was a game of growth. So I came from hey, this is what I want to give to people, this is a game of growth. So I said that hey, people will come, they'll meditate, they'll get some XP, they'll do yoga, they'll get some XP, they'll do their affirmations, they'll get some XP. And then, our whole hypothesis was that gaming is increasing and wellness is increasing, and we're kind of being able to put the two together. And then when we put it in front of people, they said, hey, where's the game? Where really is the game? So that was another big humbling experience, because you had to really go back then to say that, okay, now actually let me go to the core, which is the student of competitive exams. What are the issues that they're facing? And then let me recraft the app journey. It was an expensive mistake for us because we had to redo the entire thing to link it back to try to understand where the user is facing the issues. So that's the idea about going deep, and I think that also happens, you guys like the Fevicol work, but a lot of that Fevicol work also happens from going deep into listening and understanding to consumers. We serve consumers across millions of people across this country, and it's very important to listen. So this idea of listening and going deep is something else to keep in mind as well. And finally, the last thing that I want to share with you is that, I've learned this the hard way, which is that how you run your life is how your life will run you. So I'm going to speak about some slightly controversial thing. I hope Mr. Basu don't mind, but it's been 5 years for me of no drinking, no smoking, anything. 4.5 years I've been only riding a bicycle. And it's been about 5 years of meditating every day. And I don't know, some of you may be at that age where some of these things start getting tempting. A cigarette starts getting tempting, some alcohol starts getting tempting. I don't know, my honest advice to you, if you want to take it, is stay away from it. It's the worst thing in the world. This stuff that will tempt you is the worst thing in the world. I can't explain to you the kind of wormholes that I went into, and I've spoken a little bit about it on this podcast. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then maybe you want to listen to it. I actually opened with the bad habit that I had, and I think staying away, or actually let's just break it down. Why am I saying stay away from it? It's not from a place of being preachy or saying that this is bad, or the world says it's bad, that's why it's bad. I want to talk to you a little bit about it. So I think if you really focus on seeing ourselves as an instrument which is here on this world to serve and make the most of our time here. Most of us are actually sitting here in this world to be able to make the maximum of our lives. And when we're sitting here to make the maximum of our lives, it's our job and our responsibility to be able to find our purpose. What is it that really is, there's 7 billion people in this world, right? Maybe more now. But for each one of us, our biggest service to this world is if we find what we are amazing at and then serve that and cater to that in the best possible way. So I think what some of these other things do to you, and I think what they do is they really pull you down and pull you away from your purpose, because they're distractions to keep your mind away from what you're really supposed to do. So if you can focus on rising higher and move to this place of servitude, and I'm not trying to say that doesn't mean don't have ambition, and that's my friend Om, he was the first head boy of this school, we're still very close friends. I don't mean don't have ambition, I don't mean don't work to become the largest individual that you can become or the largest company that you can become. I'm not saying go to temples or to a mosque or a church, but I'm saying where if you can work with treating your life as a gift to this earth and serve this earth, and that's the biggest responsibility and the biggest gift we can give to ourselves and this earth. Then that's what I've learned the hard way, and I've spoken a little bit more about it on that podcast. So I just try to use this as an opportunity every time I get to speak to students. If it sticks with you, great. If it doesn't, cool. But I'm just going to request all of you stay away from all of this stuff. It's not good. And really, just coming to the end of it is, I was trying to link it back. The things that we love are the strongest guys along the way, and I hope what I've tried to share with you is that, this love is a combination of our intuition, our intellect, our success. When we see success, love starts to flow. It's our aptitude, our ease of doing something, and the flow. So when all of these things happen, that's the compass that you can use to guide your life. And that's what I've been doing so far, and I feel like I'm just, I've reached this place of center 20 years later at the start of my journey. And so I hope that some of it resonated with you, because I think I'm not so different from some of you, except that I come from a generation where CD-ROMs existed. This is from our first sports meet. Take everything with a pinch of salt, and I hope it was useful. And I think, good luck for your journey, and I hope you can wish me luck for mine. I love that line because it's so inspiring. Every time I feel down, I just go back and just go back to that line, which is आसमां को एक दिन छू के आएंगे, जो कोई ना कर सका वो कर दिखाएंगे. It's really motivating. Whoever wrote that video.
We're now going to open up the floor to some questions. Sana and I will walk around with some microphones. Raise your hand if you have a question. Introduce yourself, your name, your class, and then ask your question.
I'm Agastya. I'm currently in 9B.
Agastya.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm currently in 9B, and considering you're the alumni, I would wonder what are the 3 things that you would say are the keys to success?
Thanks for asking me that. I think this idea of keeping on learning and this being the learning center all your life is big for me. This idea of humility and being able to get to the level of people and being able to understand them. I think second is humility. So constant learning, humility, and this other thing which is this आसमां को एक दिन छू के आएंगे. So this attitude of curiosity to succeed. I think those are the 3 things. Thank you. Hi.
My name is Novel.
Sorry, your name is?
Novel. Yes, my question was, what inspired the name Shebang?
Sorry?
What inspired the name Shebang?
What inspired the name Shebang? Oh, that's okay, so actually Shebang means, when you typically say Shebang, you say the whole shebang. Yeah, so I wanted to build a company that is able to be complete, kind of be, building all of the solutions that a client may need to serve their B2B needs, right from technology to creative to marketing to Salesforce automation, all of those things. So I wanted to build something that's complete. So I see it in 2 ways, which is that we could bring the whole shebang to a customer, or we could actually add a part that helps the customer find the whole shebang. So we could fill in some parts, or we could bring the whole part. And also our logo is a hashtag fused with an exclamation, which in Unix operative also means a shebang. So it's actually in Unix, if some of you are good with Unix, a hashtag and an exclamation is called a shebang. And what it means is read what follows in its entirety. So this whole idea of entire, complete, whole is what inspired the name.
Hi, my name is Harshil, and my question is, in an environment like India, especially in 2005, when it's pretty traditional, there's like doctor, engineer, banega kind of thing. How did you find it in yourself to like go towards advertisement and marketing, which was a pretty unknown field at that time? Right. Yeah. Do you face any challenges with respect?
Yeah, I did actually. So I think it's a great question, and I think part of it came with this confusion. So when I was begging the colleges to let me in, one of them said that, hey, you can sit in for the entrance exam. And I sat for the entrance exam, and it was about 5,000 people giving the entrance exam. I came third. It was the first time in my life that I topped the chart, So I said, finally, I found something that I'm good at. So I guess it was a bit of chance. So I was able to convince my family saying that, look, actually I seem to be really good at this. So let me just do it. And then I said, I promise that I will work hard, and I promise I will make sure that I make my 3 years count, and that's what I did. Thank you.
With school life, there's a lot of different things you have to balance out. So did you start like learning about the sector you were interested in school, or did you decide to do that after you already graduated?
Did I start to learn about what in school?
Technology and media stuff.
No, actually, if I just go back to the things I distinctly remember from school, and I was just speaking to Mr. Chunawala also, that some of the things that we remember from school is, I think, this quest to keep learning. So I think what school does is sets the foundation to constantly keep learning. I think it's impossible at that age for us to know everything. But if we can know that we can keep knowing everything, that's the biggest skill that I think school's given us. Then the other things, I think some of the classes that I was part of, like I still remember very clearly the fundamentals of economics, still really remember the fundamentals of business management, so P&L balance sheet, when you learn about that, and that stays with you. Some of those things stay with you. Even languages, if I look at English and English higher level, some of those books are fascinating. They just take you to a different world. So your imagination starts to flow. So I think that's what's amazing about this school. Also, it's we used to have, and I think what's the other great thing about the school is my love for music also. And I create now music, but I really was able to build my love for music on this stage because the school gave me the opportunity saying, come to this auditorium and you have it for some time available, and you can speak, and you can sing with such a beautiful audio system. So I think those are the things that school leaves behind you. It's almost like the base structure to be able to flower out yourself. So I think that's what's amazing.
Hi, my name is Surya. I'm in grade 12.
Hi, Surya.
Hi. My question for you is, there are so many players in this kind of space in the advertising field, and it's known to people that you do X, Y, Z to get a viewer's attention. So how do you keep differentiating yourself, and what do you do that is different from the others that makes you stand?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So one thing that I think it's fundamentally important to recognize that wherever people run business, and most great people run businesses are set on process. So I think, yes, today running a 1,000 people company, what we do is we ensure that our processes on recruitment are top notch, because we hire the best talent, because we've got a very, very difficult test to get into our organization, number one. Number two is once somebody gets into the organization, we've got a fairly automated induction program. So, we've got an automated induction program built on a tech platform, plus we've turned all our perspectives on induction onto podcasts. And then what you do is we also got a Shebang Academy, which you have to go through a compulsory set of trainings before you get onto the floor to start working. So we know that we're bringing in the best, we're giving them the right perspective and integrating them into the company well, and then we're continuously training them. So we kind of treat the company as a university where you have constant training. So that makes sure that you have the best people with the best interests. And the other thing that we have is also our principles of the company. So one thing you learn when you go through an institution like this is also the importance of principles. So our first principle is actually client's business wins, we win. So we build our company and our people with that principle, saying that you serve the client, you serve it with this element of being able to make them win, and that's when you will win. So there's total 7 principles, but that's our number one. So that's what puts this amazing team together that delivers this work to clients. Yeah, but you could go follow up if I haven't answered your question.
Yeah, no, so also I wanted to ask how you replicate this culture through your different offices. You said you're a 1,000-member team, it's hard to, culture is something that doesn't go down so easily. So how do you like find that?
Yeah, so I think, it's easier said than done. Culture is typically very, you have to do a few things and repeat them well. So this art day that I spoke about, or, the blessing the office, we've done in Delhi and we've done in Bangalore. It's also about the leader that you recruit to run the office. How, value aligned are they? So it's typically we bring the leader into our home office, and this is something that I learned from the Turks. So the Ottoman Empire actually was built out to be such a large empire because the kings that they put out in different territories were brought to Istanbul and made to stay in the central headquarters for 5 years and groomed there, and then they became kings. So we kind of follow that same structure where we bring people into the home office. Even if they're head of the business, they have to come into the home office, work for 1 year. We kind of, inculcate the culture, attitude, fit, etc., and then we send them to lead the other office. So it's it's a slow burn process, but in a people-led business, you have to do that.
Thank you.
So basically,
That would be the last question. Thank you.
yes, at some points of career there may have been very low moments, like, and when you were starting your company the first time, like it must have been really hard. So what gave you the motivation to keep going and like not quit from that?
Yeah, okay, very interesting question. When I set up Shebang, I'd actually put up all my life savings into that company, second time round. Because I'd earned some money over 6.5 years. I took all of that money, put it into the new company. So I was literally broke. I was broke in the sense that my salary was 20,000 a month from 6.5 lakh a month. So you can understand that when you are from 6.5 lakh a month to 20,000 a month, you know what happens to you. That means you cannot wear fancy clothes anymore. You cannot wear a fancy watch. You cannot do any fancy stuff. You cannot go out to eat. You have to become a bit of a recluse, all of that stuff. So what started happening to me is that I started becoming more, I started going more inside myself, and it was really challenging because I was seeing negative. Red for 6 months. So I almost, I also went and almost found and sold my company. I found a buyer saying that worst case if I failed and somebody will be able to buy me and recover all my money back. But then through that process, I also hired a good lawyer to write that contract. And I always look back and say that that was the best legal lesson I had, because in adversity you learn some of your biggest lessons. So the only thing I guess in adversity is you keep going through. There's nothing else in it. I guess it's a fine line, because somewhere you don't have to let your ego be like, hey, I can't not let go, because we all hate to fail. But at the same time, if you can put your head down, continue working, know that I'm working on the right place, my numbers are increasing, more customers are coming, and I keep going. And have the perseverance to go through without complaining too much. I think that's what then works. I don't know if that answers your question, but that was my lesson.